You're listening to the Warrior Rulebook podcast, episode 6, How to Walk in Any Room and Own It. Today, I want to talk about how you can find the confidence, like actual steps that you can take in order to be confident in any situation, walk in any room, and just be confident overall and know your stuff. You're listening to the Warrior Rulebook podcast with me, Monique Harmon. I love helping people express themselves, protect their peace, and be confident in being them. You may also know me as Pretty Nikki, who started her online journey as a modest fashion blogger. Now I'm an entrepreneur. You'll see through my experiences and the experiences of others that change is possible, improvement is tasty, and meaningful connection is transformational. Come on, share your story with me. So I'm going to be really honest. It is very hard to walk in a room full of people that you may or may not know and just walk up and start talking to somebody. And I know that sounds really weird because a lot of people that know me, they're like, oh yeah, Mo is like so sociable and, you know, she can become friends with everybody. Like, I know it looks like that, but I still struggle with trying to form connections. And so that's why I'm constantly still learning from others and watching videos on like what are the best practices to network and form connections, because every experience is going to be different. Like there are going to be some people that you click with right away, and then there's other people that you're like, wow, like I could have said this, like in retrospect, like just thinking of like what you could have said to keep the conversation going, and you're like, wow, it's a missed opportunity now. So it's a work in progress. Like you just have to constantly keep doing that. So the first rule that I would say is to have a few firsts. And what do I mean by that? Try to find something naturally to break the record, or something that's impressive, something that you can talk about without being boastful. For example, there are a few people that I look up to. One of the most notable people would probably be Diahann Carroll. She was the first African-American woman to star in a non-domestic role. And so, you know, that's a pretty big deal, because growing up watching, you know, different shows, you would see Black people like be in minor roles or supporting roles, never somebody that is like the star of the show. And I did a little research and I saw that Ethel Waters was actually the first person to have her own show back in 1939. So that was really impressive. And also a lot of people may have heard of the Jeffersons, and Roxy Roker, who played Helen, was half of the first interracial couple on television. So a lot of these, barriers that were broken by these women were really inspiring to me. And even for myself, I was a first generation college student, and even though they did have a registered student organization on campus for people who are first generation college students, I didn't take advantage of that. And so even with that, like you still feel alone when you're like going through something like that. But my parents didn't go to college. I don't think that anybody else in my family was a first generation college student before me. And so it wasn't like I could go to somebody in my family and be like, hey, like how was college? Or like, what do I do in this situation? What do I do in that situation? Like a lot of it, I had to like go out and actively find answers, whether it be on campus or asking some of my friends from church that had already, started college or went through college, like how did that go? Just watching different videos to prep for school, to prep for college. So it's definitely a different experience when you are alone and you don't have somebody to give you that rule book on how to do certain things. You don't have anybody to really look up to, because it's like you are by yourself, and that's what it kind of feels like. And just to go back over Diahann Carroll, and I recognized her from the TV show Dynasty that came out, I think, in the 70s or 80s. And what really struck me about her was that she was in like such a role of power, and I immediately picked up on that. It just shocked me that somebody, so conniving and so ruthless was that character for a Black person, because Black people were pretty much in submissive and in, supporting roles. They didn't really, win anything, if that makes sense, like win any like struggles. They weren't participating in the solutions or, winning an argument. They kind of were like stuck in like a submissive role. And to see somebody like come out of nowhere during, I don't know what season, but to see somebody kind of come out of nowhere and pretty much like, I'm going to take over Colorado, like that just really like threw me off of my rocker. And I could tell that it also threw off Alexis Carrington, who was played by Joan Collins. Alexis was used to dominating Colorado and trying to take over her children's lives and pretty much like take them from Blake. And so like just to see somebody else and a Black person just come and, she wasn't bothered by Alexis at all. She was like, I can fight dirty too. And it's not to say, oh, everyone just be ruthless. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. It's just to say the fact that she went for that role, something that nobody was doing before her, was just amazing to me. The reason why I liked her in that role was because of the power that she had. Like she didn't try to like sneak in, or she wasn't scared at all. Like she was just fearless, and she was just, she knew her stuff, and she pretty much knew how to play the game. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Some quotes that she had said about the show, the first one that struck me was when Aaron Spelling, who was a television producer and a film producer, when his people reached out to her and said, how do you want us to write your character in the show? And she said, forget that she is a female, forget that she's a Black person, and write it exactly the way you would write it for a rich white man that wants to continue being successful, someone that's ruthless. And so like that just kind of blew my mind, because I was like, wow, okay, so that was pretty much the inspiration for her character. Then at the American Black Film Festival a few years ago, she was given the Legacy Award, and she, praised that type of event because she hadn't seen anything like that before. And so like, just a award ceremony, just to celebrate Black people, which is pretty amazing. And so she said when she was beginning her career, people or critics would ask her, what is she doing? Why is she doing that? And she said that she didn't know, like she just felt strongly about something and that she wanted to try it, because she did bring up a good point, like saying, there's no return ticket. Basically, you like once your time has like gone, not even just talking about death, but like once you get to retirement age, you can't just go back, especially in an industry with film and acting and singing. You can't go back and just try to pick up that missed opportunity. It's like once you reach retirement or death, like you're done. People, they're not going to be calling you to do certain things. They're not going to be calling you for gigs and stuff like that, because like your time is done. They're going to give it to somebody that's younger, that's more full of promise. And so that really stuck with me. And that just really encouraged me, to keep doing what I'm doing, because it's like, I just want to live my life with no regrets. That's something that I keep saying in my podcast episodes, because it's so true. Like, I do not want to be, I don't want to grow old and be like, wow, I wish that I did that. I know I want to be able to say I did that and like it was great, or I did that and it failed, but I found something else to do. So that's why she's like really an inspiration to me. And even somebody more recent like Taraji P. Henson, who plays various Black women in power. She started in one of the recent movies, Hidden Figures, as Katherine C. Johnson, who is still alive, by the way. Johnson was one of the first African Americans to work as a NASA scientist, and her calculations of orbital mechanics were critical to the success of the first subsequent U.S. crewed space flights. So just seeing Taraji like play her like so well and so accurately was really inspirational to me. And I know that Taraji's really adamant about, women in power, women in business, women in, high achieving CEO type level of business and position. So she's one of my favorite actresses, and Hidden Figures was a great movie. So like all of these women I have looked up to as far as being the first to do something, and how they face challenges, and even though their challenges aren't my challenges, they're still very encouraging for me to pursue my own dreams and be the first to do something great. I would definitely say you want to have something that's notable, something that people will remember about you when they meet you, because you don't want to meet somebody and then they're like, yeah, somebody might bring you up to them. They're like, who is that? Like, you do not want to leave that type of impression. You want to leave the type of impression that says, like, this is what I want you to remember about me, and here's how we can work together. The second rule I would say is research. Make sure you know your information. Something that I learned, over the course of my journalism career is to research before you interview somebody. Research before you talk to somebody, because you got to think about it. Journalists aren't the only ones that have interviews or they interview people. No, like when you are first meeting somebody, you're exchanging face or something that like, that's kind of what we learn in our communications class. Like, people, they want to make a good first impression on you. So they may not show everything all at once, but they are going to show something that they want you to remember about them. So that way, the next time you meet them, you have something else to talk about. It's just not like, hi, how are you? Like, no, if you want to form a connection, you want to know about the person that you're talking to, and you also want them to know something about you as well. So you want to be able to walk in a room and talk to somebody and already have like a talking point. And I'm not saying be a stalker, stalk their Instagram pages, stalk their Facebook pages. Like, no, just try to find something, like, even if you're talking to somebody that might be a mutual friend or something of that nature, and just, see what they're up to. I mean, you might glance on their social media and see like, oh, this is something I can talk about. But I'm not saying like, stalk through weeks and weeks and weeks of stuff that they've done, because that would be really creepy. But you definitely want to do your research. That way you're not just like, oh, tell me about yourself. Like, you do not want to do that. That is highly embarrassing. Definitely do your research. So that way, like let's just say, for example, you hear an author is coming to town and they have this like amazing book. Imagine if you walked to that event and the first person that talked to you was the author, and you're just like, hi, how are you doing? Tell me about yourself. Like, imagine how that would make you cringe, and how that would make the other person cringe, because the author is thinking like, well, why did you come and you know nothing about me? Like, if anything, they should be asking you about you, like what made you come to their event. So you definitely want to make sure like you know about the book, you read some chapters, even if you didn't read the entire book, but you want to make sure that you know what's going on, because the worst thing you can do is walk to an event and you have to ask all the questions that you should have known before you got to the event. I will also say dress the part. So when I say that, you want to wear something that, I wouldn't say like it exudes confidence, but just something that you feel confident in. So a couple of my favorite outfits might be like a floral dress, because like I think that's a great representation of my personality, like floral and girly. So I may wear that like if I'm going to a very important event. I love my newsprint t-shirt, so it looks exactly like a newspaper. I love it. Of course, I'm not going to wear that to, a banquet event or an interview, but like if I am meeting somebody for the first time and I'm going to like a small gathering or like some sort of social gathering that's kind of casual, yeah, I would put that on, because I want people to know, like, boom, she's a journalist. I want them to know, like, I'm very invested in news. I love talking to people, so that might be a great conversation piece. So just kind of, whatever role you're in, whether it be a job or it be a social gathering, you need to wear something that reflects you, because I love fashion. And so I love complimenting people on their fashion. Be like, yeah, I like how you put that together. Or, wow, where did you get that from? Like, that's a great dress. That's a great shirt. So definitely dress the part. Attitude. Oh, yeah. So another rule would be try to mingle and talk to a few people. Like, you don't want to just kind of talk to one person and then you're on the wall for the rest of the night. That's no fun. And I definitely still struggle with this, because I actually went to a book event for my friend. So that was why I had a great example. But me, I did my research and everything, so I wasn't in the bad case scenario. But my friend, she had actually released a book, and I went there and, I talked to her. She was the first person I saw. And so we already have this connection. We already been talking about her book. I constantly engage with her on social media about her book. So I really could skip the step of researching, because I already had a personal connection with her. But yeah, I talked to her. I talked to a few other people that are helping like sponsor her product, her books and stuff. So like through her and through meeting them, like I already had a conversation part because I had already met them in the past as well. They just didn't know like what I looked like because I had talked to them on the phone first. And so I wasn't completely like just hugging the wall the whole night. And then I saw a coworker there. So it was really fun just being there and engaging and supporting her. Definitely see if you have any mutual friends that are going with you to events, because that can help break the ice, and you all can like exchange information about, who you are, and what you do. That kind of like thins the ice or breaks the ice. So I would definitely suggest that. I would also say, be warm. Like we kind of, some people kind of have the tendency to walk in a room and feel like, everybody's against you, but like you feel like it's me versus them, and it's not like that at all in all cases, unless you already know somebody that's going to be there that is going to be against you. That's a different situation. But I'm talking about, just going somewhere for the first time. Just try to, talk and, say hello, and, maybe like what brought you to this event. That's a good conversation starters. Or, even if you have to Google some conversation starters, if you have like literally nothing to talk about, I would do that as well. But yeah, just be warm, have a positive attitude, and look at the person and be like, wow, we can potentially be friends. Like just kind of go in with an open mind. Don't go in, thinking it's going to be a failure. They're not going to like me or anything like that. 'Cause like, granted, some places that I do go, I don't make friends with everybody because I'm kind of introverted sometimes. But if you don't get any numbers or any business cards or anything like that, or there's no potential to work in the future, fine. But it's more practice. I see it as more practice for networking with somebody that can potentially be supporting you, or you can be supporting them, or a nice connection. So always keep an open mind. That's what I would say. So thank you guys for listening to the Warrior Rulebook podcast, and stay tuned for more episodes. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Warrior Rulebook podcast. If you like what you heard, share it with a friend, and join me over at the Warrior Rulebook Podcast Insider Group on Facebook. And don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for more tips on how to be resilient in this world.